Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Create with Alex Blake. I'm your host, Alex Blake, and today we have a guest on the pod. It is one of our favorite things to talk about. We are talking about photography today with Miss Summer Labelle. Say hey, Summer.
Hey guys.
I am so excited for Summer to be on the podcast today. Because it's my first time meeting her, which feels weird because we both live in Charleston. I told her, I was like, wait, why are we even doing this on like on the screen? Like, why aren't we in person? But I'm also super excited because she's going to talk all about like the world of Super 8, which is obviously super in right now. But I love like Summer's story with it. And I'm super excited for her to like dive into this more. But I've been following you on Instagram, I think since I like moved to Charleston probably, or maybe since you moved to Charleston. I don't know. Maybe it was around the same time. While. I don't know. Yeah. But I feel like it's cool. Like you've kind of been doing it, not because it's trendy, but because you love it, you know, and I just like love that. So I'm super excited to get to hear from you. And she's also going to share some like tips if anyone is actually interested in shooting Super 8 and you're like a newbie like me, you know, nothing. We get to learn today. So grab your notes app. And yeah, let's like chat into detail and all the things. So, okay, Summer, let's start with the basics a little bit. Can you explain like what Super 8 even is? If someone's like, I don't even do photography, I just listen to this podcast to hear Alex's voice, like explain what Super 8 is, but then also talk about maybe why it's like a cool format for photographers and videographers in general.
Totally. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here and talk about Super 8. So Super 8 is a vintage film video. So it captures the image on an actual roll of film.
Love it.
And has the ability to store like 2.5 minutes of footage per roll. And Super 8, I think, has made a huge comeback in recent years, partly because of the nostalgia that you get from watching something that's shot on film. I think it feels very like warm and organic. And because it has that old like home movie feel, it naturally evokes a sense of emotion and nostalgia in people.
I love that. I totally think that's exactly why, like, I personally love it. Like, when I see your videos that you post, I'm like, oh, I know these people and I don't know them at all, you know? But I love it. Okay, so tell us how you got into Super 8 in general. Like, tell us your story with that.
Yeah, so I am from Greenville, so from the upstate. And after college, I worked in video production for a couple years, but I had like no background in video. I joined the team
to like look back on that, and now it's like all you do.
I know. But I joined the team as a video producer, so I did a lot of like the client side of things. And then in 2020, I moved to Maui. Never having been, didn't know anybody, just like followed a childhood dream of mine.
That's wild.
And worked a bunch of odd jobs, as you do in Hawaii, because there's a lot of like boat jobs and coffee shop jobs and all those things. And I got to a point probably like end of 2021. So I had been there like a little over a year, where I just wanted to figure out like what I was passionate about, what I wanted to spend my time pursuing. Like I knew that I wanted to do my own thing. I just didn't really know in what capacity. So I was working at a coffee shop and I quit my job. I went home for Christmas and I came back and I was like, okay, what am I passionate about? And I knew I loved the creative world and like creative spaces. I just didn't really know in what capacity. Obviously I had a little background in video, but not really much in photo. I knew that I loved the movement and the life that comes through video. So I had a friend who reached out and she was like, hey, she's an elopement photographer. And she was like, I need assisting on my elopements. Like basically like being there with me, having like getting the groom ready, that kind of stuff. And so I started assisting her and just loved like the world that she was in. Like it was so fun that she was like on a random Tuesday capturing somebody's elopement, like most special day in the most beautiful place in the world.
On a random Tuesday.
I love it. And she one day was like, hey, like I got this camera called a Super 8 and I actually haven't had much time to figure out how to use it. So if you want to film some of my elopements and like figure out how to use this camera, you're welcome to. And so I did some research. There's not a lot online, which is hard when you're learning Super 8.
Yeah.
But I was watching videos from like, you know, these old filmmaker guys that like make these YouTube videos on how to shoot film. And so I would watch their videos and figure out how to shoot Super 8 and started shooting some of her elopements. And then I was like, one day I called her and I was like, I've loved shooting film. Like, I think it's so fun. I love that there's only a certain amount of footage per roll. Like, you don't see it till you get it back. And it's
See,
like,
that is stressful to me.
It is
like, I love that you love that, because I'm like, I could never.
It's definitely there's a lot of like, you know, like, it's hard to predict what you're shooting is going to be like completely accurate, but it's kind of beautiful too.
See, I think that's a control issue in me more than it says anything about you.
No, that's totally, I mean, I've had some scares for sure. But I called her and I was like, I think I want to do my own thing. And she was so supportive. And I like started filming some of her elopements as like a vendor that she would hire. Cool. And then I just started getting my own bookings, and that's how I got my start.
I love it. So who is like your main clientele now?
Now, definitely weddings.
Okay, so still kind of similar.
Yeah, so obviously I moved from Maui. I lived in Maui for like 3.5 years, and then I moved here to Charleston last year.
Okay.
And it's kind of changed in my move because Maui there's a lot of elopements. Mm-hmm. But Charleston's a lot of like full-on weddings, you know, like 8 to 10 hour wedding days. So it's changed a little bit from elopements to weddings, but definitely still. I shoot some brand stuff, but I would say more so weddings.
More couples, yeah. That's really cool. And it is so special because I don't think that is like a typical videographer thing to have. Again, it is very trendy right now. Yeah. But especially when you started, I don't think it probably was as trendy. Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah. It's interesting because this was probably 2022, the beginning of 2022 that I started. And I don't think it was really like a thing at all on the East Coast. It definitely, I think the West is more like film.
That's true.
Vibe people, you know, like
film vibe people.
Film vibe people.
I love it. We know what you mean. Yeah.
You know what I mean. But I do think it's like slowly making its way over to the East Coast, which is cool.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think, I can think of like the most trendy photographers on the East Coast, and I'm like, they're totally in that, you know? Yeah. I love it. Okay, well, tell us a little bit about your move from Maui to Charleston, because I every time that I talk about my move to Charleston from Georgia on the podcast, people are like, tell us more, because there's so many people who are thinking about moving, just moved, you know, want to start a new business in a new place, like all of the things that come with that. So tell us a little bit about that move. Tell us maybe some challenges that you experienced with your move, some good things. Tell us everything about it.
Totally. Yeah. So it was a really hard move, to be honest. I think my friends and I would say, it's kind of like a joke that we would say, but it's not really a joke, because we would say that Maui like ruins you. Because it's the most beautiful place to live. And I think the lifestyle was very me. Just like, obviously my name is Summer and I love like the sunshine and I love the summer. And so, and I love to surf. So that's a huge like part of my life. And so it was a big transition for sure. But I think it's also been really good. Like I think my business has really taken off, and there's a lot to living in such a small place, like on an island, where you do feel very limited. And so it's been nice to be, obviously I'm from Greenville, so my family is in South Carolina, and I love being close to them. And I do feel like there's a little bit more that I can like experience and grow in and reach for being back on the mainland.
I've heard that from other people too in Hawaii. It's such a sweet experience for a season, but a lot of them are like, okay, but now in order to reach this next place in my life or this next goal for my life, I need to move away, you know?
And it's such a great place. I mean, it truly is such a dream. And so I do still take weddings there, so I'm kind of like back and forth, which is.
And you were just there?
I was just there for a couple weddings. So I was there for almost 3 weeks, which was amazing.
Gosh, that is amazing.
Yeah. Did
you get to stay with friends?
Yes. I was going to say a lot of my best friends are there. So it's nice to be able to go back and see them. It is like kind of a hard, Charleston to Maui is like a hard back and forth for sure. but it's worth it because those friends feel like my family. So
oh, that's really cool. And it is cool too to think about like when you move somewhere, it doesn't have to be like goodbye forever. You know, like a lot of the time you still have clients in the other location. You still get to like do that. I do that with Georgia too. My husband and I go back like I would say bi-monthly. Sometimes it's every month, but usually it's like 3 days bi-monthly. And it's so nice because I get to still take clients there. You know, like I don't have to fully be done with like all my friends in Georgia just because I moved here. But Georgia to Charleston is quite a bit different than to Hawaii.
But yeah, it's so sweet to be able to go
like
back.
A half around the globe practically. But okay, so talk about like building your client base in this new location in Charleston completely from scratch. What was that like for you? And like, did you have any like strategies that you did for building?
No.
I love it. The honesty is so good.
Like, did I have strategies? No, I think it was such a big move for me. Like there were so many parts to it that I honestly think it wasn't until I landed in Charleston that I was like, okay,
I'm here. Yeah.
What am I doing now? And so, gosh, when I first got to Charleston, I just was like, I don't know. I knew a handful of people. Like one of my lifelong best friend lived here, which is kind of how I got here, just because I knew I wanted to be back on the mainland, but not sure where. And so I moved here basically for her. And then she actually moved back to Tennessee, but she was so great in my move here. And I got here and I was like, okay, where do I go now? And so I think naturally I am a people person. Like I love to connect with people and I love to chat with people. And
Charleston is so good for that. I feel like it's very community based.
Yes. Which I think is, I guess maybe that was my strategy. I don't know. I like would go places and talk to people and have my camera and people would ask me questions and I would just meet wedding planners. Like I would be walking down the street and see a wedding planning office and go in and introduce myself. And
I did that same thing pretty much. So I love that it's like, it's just people like networking, but it's not like icky networking. Like it's like, let me just go make friends. And with that, I know things are going to work out, you know?
Yeah. And I think like you said, like Charleston is the community of like photographers, videographers, wedding planners is pretty small. Like a lot of people just know each other and it's cool because it's a place where people like want to like connect you with other people in the industry. At least in my experience, I don't feel like it's been like competitive, you know, which is really nice. And so I think I just reached out and word of mouth and I think Charleston is such a wedding destination too that, you know, you shoot one wedding and it connects you to another, connects you to the bridesmaids in the wedding and all that kind of stuff. So.
And weddings are cool like that. I don't shoot a ton of weddings. I mainly do like graduating seniors, but it is like interesting how it's similar where like, you know, one senior posts and then you get like 4 more from the same school, you know, or whatever. But with weddings, it's like very in person versus like I'll get 4 seniors from social media, you know, versus like you're meeting the bridesmaids in person, making those connections, you know. So it's like the community face to face kind of thing. So it's good for someone who likes friendships, I feel like.
Yes.
But okay, let's kind of transition to talking a little bit more about like Super 8 specifically. Cause like genuinely, I'm so curious. Like, I think like even what you were saying, like my own personal style, like I love the beach. I am a beginner surfer, but I love to learn surfing. I feel like I have to relearn every summer though, because I take the winter off because I'm a wimp and I like, I can't do it. I can't do it. It's too cold. So anyway, I love like the concept of Super 8. One of the people that I follow and like totally look up to is Rox Facer. Do you know who that is?
I love her work.
I love her too. I've DM'd her and been like, will you come on the podcast? But I haven't heard back yet. One day, guys. One day she'll be on the podcast. If I ever
get connected to her, I'll let you know.
Please do. I've like commented on her TikToks like, hi, I'd love to have you on the podcast. One day. But I so look up to her. Her work is beautiful. And your work reminds me a lot of hers, which is like, I hope you take that as a compliment because like it so really genuinely, she's so talented. And I think you are too. So even just for myself, I'm like, I would love to learn more about Super 8 because I do think it really fits like my location, you know, even and like what I like I just like visually love Super 8.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. One thing that I'm very curious about is like, how do you explain the value of a Super 8 to your potential clients? Because one thing that I feel like is like, if someone's a creative, then they're naturally going to know how cool a Super 8 is when they see it. But if somebody isn't quite like as creative, they might not look at it and understand why that's really cool. You know what I mean? They're like, well, it's kind of fuzzy, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because film just looks different. So is there any like way that you explain that, or you just look for the creative people that know it's cool, you know?
Yeah, no, that's actually so funny that you say that, because I had a booth at this like bridal show last year, and I had a couple people that were like so stoked to find somebody that shot Super 8 because that's what they were looking for. And then I had some people that were like, I don't get it. Like, it's kind of grainy.
Exactly.
Like, that's the point. But yeah, I feel like in my experience, at least, most people that have reached out and like been interested in Super 8 understand it, and it's almost like something that they seek out. And so I feel like with that, they kind of like already understand the value of it or see the value in it. I think that people that are drawn to Super 8 love the like nostalgia of it. I always say that it feels like I'm watching my memories like replay in my mind. You know, like when you have a memory of something, it's almost this like hazy video, and
I love it.
That's like kind of what you feel when you're watching Super 8. So I do feel like the people that it draws, that's like what they're looking for, and they like see the value in it, which is it is funny because obviously Super 8 has become more trendy, and I think some people don't realize like it is an investment. Because one roll of film can cost, you know, $100 to $200 depending on like how you process it. And it only holds 2.5 minutes of footage, depending on if you do less frames per second, it has more time.
You can't be an overshooter.
Totally. So it is definitely an investment, because just to shoot film, it's, you know, a couple $100. But typically the people that want it see the value of it. Which is nice.
That is cool. So is Super 8 the only kind of video that you offer?
For the most part,
that's so cool.
Yeah, I do shoot digital occasionally. Like I have some clients that I work with, like brands that want digital, and sometimes brides will ask for like a mix of Super 8 and digital. But honestly, I feel so passionate about Super 8, and I don't really feel that way as much about digital. And I think it's like partially because of what Super 8 offers, like the feeling and just like I love the slowness of it. You know, like you have to be patient to get the film back, and you can't overshoot, and it just feels more of like a in the moment, like capturing the most important moments for me. And I also feel like some people that shoot digital are so good that I'm like, I don't know if I could differentiate myself among other people that are just so talented.
You are so funny. Like, I feel the same way about Super 8. I'm like, I don't know that I could. So I can't compete with Summer.
Oh my gosh, you totally can.
I love it. Okay, well, I think it's cool that like this is something that you offer and are so passionate about, because you can just tell that you have a love for it. And I love that about creativity. Like when you find your niche, there's just this like beautiful love for it, and you're passionate about it. And I feel like it's contagious, you know, like hearing you talk about this, I'm like, yeah, let's go. I'm all in. Like, let me redo my wedding, you know, so that we can have Super 8 at it. But I do want to hear some like tips from you. I know you came with like 5 tips, and guys, she brought notes. So it's like the love of my heart is notes. So I want to hear those 5 tips, just even for myself, obviously, but also anyone who's listening, if they're interested in shooting Super 8, walk us through them.
So I wrote down 5 tips because I really wanted to choose my favorites.
Love it.
So the first tip I would say is so I don't know if you know this even, but I actually started a TikTok last year for my Super 8, and I like have never really been a TikTok girl. I have this like love-hate relationship with social media, but I started it to try to connect with brides and like share my work, and it's kind of become this like Super 8 education page.
Oh, cool.
So people like ask a bunch of questions, and I just answer them.
Yeah. Well, share your TikTok so everybody can go find it.
Okay, I'll share. So it's I'll share it to you, but it's Super 8 Film with 2 M's.
Fun.
I think
Love
the one M was probably taken.
Yeah. Super 8 Film with 2 M's.
Super 8 Film with 2 M's, yeah. So, but the first thing, like the most important tip that I always tell people is to purchase a camera that's been film tested. Because a lot of times, like, people find Super 8s at the store and the motor works, but if it hasn't been tested with film, then there's no way to know that what you're shooting is actually capturing.
Sure.
Because obviously you have to get it, developed in order to see what you shot. So it can be a bummer if you just like picked up a camera from the store and then you shoot something and it doesn't capture anything. Yeah. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, so, that sucks.
That's my first tip. My second is to know your film, because there's so many different kinds of film stocks. The most popular are 50D, 200T, and 500T, and they all are used in different lighting settings. And so if you use a film, like 500T is the most light sensitive, and if you use it, you want to use it at like sunset or like indoor lighting, and if you use it midday, it's just too bright, so it can't handle it.
Okay, can I ask a dumb question? Because literally I'm a beginner at this, right?
Yeah, please.
So, okay, if you have like that sunset film in or whatever, what did you say that was called?
Like 500T, probably.
Okay, so if you've got your 500T in,
yes,
and it's sunset, but you're not finished with that roll yet, and then you wake up the next day and sunrise goes by, and then it's daytime and you're ready to shoot again, can you like take the roll off and use a different roll for that?
That is such a good question.
Okay, good.
That's like such a valid question.
I'm like, is this stupid?
No, it's not. You can, and I think I don't shoot like film photo much, like 35 millimeter. But from what I know, you can't open the film chamber until you're done shooting because it exposes the whole roll. But it's not the same with Super 8, which is super nice. But a lot of times, Super 8, super nice. A lot of times if I'm like shooting, like you said, like I'm shooting sunset and then I still have half a roll left and then I'm going to go shoot in the daytime the next day, I'll just take the roll out and put it back in the box and then mark like 25 feet used, because there's 50 feet per roll. But what was I going to say? Oh, you do lose a couple of frames. So if I like shot sunset and then the next day shot something indoor, there's going to be a flash of white in between those two shots, and it's like 2 to 3 frames that are being exposed. Okay,
so you just kind of have to plan for it.
Yeah, you just have to like don't end on a super important shot or start on a super important shot, just in case. Okay,
yeah. That's so interesting. Okay, continue with the tips. I'm so invested.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. Okay. My third is to learn your camera. Obviously, this is super important, I feel like, in any like photography, videography. But I think with Super 8, it obviously is an investment every time you shoot. So if I go out and shoot one roll that's, $150, and it can feel like when you're starting, like that's so much money, like it feels like such a waste. But I think it's so important to know the different settings, the different lighting, like figure out if your light meter works, figure out, what kind of shots you prefer going into something, because if you don't know those things beforehand and you're figuring it out while you're shooting a wedding, then that can feel like a waste. Right. So I think the investment on the front end is definitely worth it.
Totally.
My fourth tip is something that I feel like I learned just like naturally as I was kind of like progressing in my skill was to minimize the zoom function, because I feel like when I first started shooting, I was always like moving all around and zooming in and out, and it's like so fun because Super 8 does give you that like whimsical kind of like unstaged vibe. But I do think a more like steady shot or a steady zoom actually looks a little bit more professional.
Ooh, okay.
And there are times when like it's fun to like I shot a couple last week and they were like running on the beach and I was running with them, and there's just so much movement, which is really fun. But I think if you overuse the zoom, it can look a little messy maybe.
Yeah. Do you feel like that is more so something that you've learned in your style, or a tip that is like for sure you really would avoid, you know what I mean? Like like even if you had a different style than you.
Yeah. Maybe more so my style, but I do think, or maybe it's just a preference. Maybe it's a personal preference, because there's a couple like filmmakers that I really look up to, and I've noticed that their work, it doesn't lack, like obviously Zoom is important, you know, like there's always going to be Zoom, but there's just so much more steadiness to it than I think I had when I started. And I feel like it, and maybe it's my preference, but it looks more like put together.
Yeah, totally. And that might be, it might be a little mix of both, you know, like it might be your style and your preference, but then also it's like you're further down the line in learning it too. Yeah. So it's like you kind of have learned like what clients actually want too.
Definitely. Yeah. So and it's funny. I'm sure you feel this too, but just looking back on some of your first work.
Oh, 100%.
Like, why did I think that looked good?
Like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
No, I just posted a Instagram, or I guess like on TikTok too. I just posted a video of like random things that I did when I was a beginner that are so embarrassing. One of them,
I think I saw that.
Really? Yesterday. One of them, I posted this, I posted this picture that I had taken where I was using Dodge and Burn for the first time. Yes. And literally, I guess I had like cloned a clump of someone's hair into the corner of it, and I posted it, not even seeing it. So I went back to it being like, wait, what?
You know? Did you know when you posted it that it was there?
No. So I have no idea. It may have been up for months. I don't remember when I saw it, but I remember going back and looking at the picture and was like, oh, this is embarrassing.
I wonder if anybody else noticed it.
But probably. And I tagged the clients in it and everything.
Yeah, it has like 20 sends, and you're like, why is everybody sending this?
Honestly. But yeah, I mean, this was a while ago, so I don't even know that you could send things at that point.
That's true.
But I hope not.
That's so funny.
Anyway, though. Okay, I love that one. So that was 4. Do you want to share tip number 5?
Then 5th is just to invest in your business. So I think that's, you know, similar to investing in your camera and learning your skill. But I think there's so much to like financially and time-wise investing in your business upfront that's going to save you a lot in the future.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I have questions. Can I just like rapid fire questions? Okay.
Yes.
I didn't prepare you for these at all, so I'm so sorry.
I hope I know the answers.
No, as you're talking, I'm like, wait, I need to know everything. Okay, first question that I'm thinking, how do you deliver your video? And then also, do you take stills with it too?
Yeah, so actually, so I use Vimeo to deliver, which is where I house all my videos. And I haven't actually found something that I like that's similar to like Pixie Set for photographers. I don't know. I feel like that's how a lot of people deliver photos.
Yeah, I use Pass, and I love Pass.
Okay, I'll have to look. Yeah, I've tried some different like delivery methods, but I feel like Vimeo works the best. So that's what I've been using. And then I take stills from the film on my own. So you can actually take like one frame, like so when you like hold the trigger down, it films, but you can change the setting from like 24 frames per second to 1, and then it'll just take one still. So you can do that, but it's funny, like once you're looking at it on the timeline when you're editing it, it's like a little tiny flash, and you can't always tell that it's a still unless you like hover over it. So a lot of times I will take like the whole film, and I'll just go through and see like moments that I like, and I'll take a still from that.
Okay.
And then send them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I would probably prefer to do something like that too.
Yeah, because then you have like the whole moment on film, and then you're capturing like one image from it.
Yeah.
And it's sweet because it kind of like aligns with the film because it still is from the film. So
yeah, I love that. Yeah, I always like, you know, for weddings when like the videographer and the photographer have similar styles. So it's not like they're being delivered something that looks completely different, you know, than like all of their photos. So I love that idea and concept too. Okay. Do you pay for Vimeo, or is it free to use?
I do pay for, I think it's like a yearly.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Second question. Okay. Do you edit your Super 8 film? Like, how does that work? Yeah. What software do you use? How do you upload it to your laptop? Tell me everything.
Great questions. I do edit my film. I feel like there's two major components to shooting Super 8, and both equally as important when like developing your style. And that's obviously the shooting and the editing. I think the editing is where you can really like differentiate yourself. So I edit on Final Cut Pro. I don't know if you are familiar, but there's like DaVinci and Premiere Pro. I learned on Final Cut and it's my favorite. So when I shoot my film, I send it to Pro 8mm, which is in California, and they like process and develop all of it for me.
Okay. That was another question that I
had. Yes. So when you go to upload your film, you'll choose your preferences of like how you want it scanned, like if you want them to color correct, all of those things. And I had switched from a different lab in California to Pro 8, and so I wasn't as familiar with some of their like settings. And so the first time I sent a roll in with them, I think I sent 3 rolls, and I chose, they like ask you if you want a log scan, which is colorless, or best light, or you can have them color correct it. And I chose best light because I was like, oh, best sounds good. Like,
like this is the recommendation.
I want the best light. So I chose best light, but basically that chooses like the best light from the first frame of the film. And then for the whole 3 rolls, it kept it on the same like lighting.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so
it's as if they never changed their ISO. It's like my terms. Yes.
Totally. So I got it back and I was like, this film looks so bad. I was like, I don't know what happened, but like half of it is like so overexposed. And so I called them and they were like, oh, it's because you chose best light. And I was like, I didn't know what that
was a thing.
It just sounded good. And so I had them like rescan it. Nice. But I always choose the log scan now, which is colorless. So basically when you get it back, it looks kind of gray because there's like no color to it. But then you have so much like wiggle room and play room with the coloring. So I color my own footage. I feel like that is such an important aspect to it.
Okay, so let's back it up. So you're at a wedding day. Yes. You're shooting with this roll. Okay. And then you, depending on the light, have to change the roll out because we've learned now there's different types of films. Thank you for letting us know, Summer. Yes, and then you take those rolls, and with those rolls, like after a wedding day, do you back them up at all? Like, is there a way to do that? Or is it just like, this is the roll and we're shipping it off to California? This is the roll and we're shipping it off to California. The stress. No, I know. Oh my God.
Like every photographer's worst nightmare.
Literally. Yeah. Every modern photographer, all of the like 90s photographers are like, chill out, Alex.
I know. No, it is like such a, it's a vintage art form.
Yeah, so, and it teaches you patience, like you said. It teaches you
patience. Yeah. And also I'm just like, literally I pray for my footage when I send it. I'm like, God protect this footage.
Yes.
So California gets it, and then once they send it to me, I like back it up myself. So once I get it digital, then I'll back it up.
Okay. But until it's digital, there's no way to do that, which makes sense. I don't even know. That's why why did I even ask that question?
No, it's okay. There should be a way to do that.
You would think in today's world, but
I guess, do know that Kodak just released a Super 8, like a modern Super 8, and it's like $5,000.
Sure.
But they say it's guaranteed no loss of film. So I'm like,
interesting. I wonder, like, I don't know. In my head, I'm like, okay, guys, we need to make a modern Super 8 that has like an SD card on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Super 8?
Well, no, but it would be like digital.
Totally.
Okay, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know how there's like the Fujifilm like cameras that have like film simulation?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody take this idea of mine, because I'm not going to do it. You don't even have to give me credit. Like, somebody take this and just roll with it, because I would buy it.
I bet somebody will.
Yeah, I hope that you do. Whoever's listening to this and does it, please like DM me on Instagram. Let me know.
Give you credit for it.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of, I do have another question too.
Okay.
So when you're editing, you know how there's like different templates and stuff like that you can use when editing that you could put over it to make it look like a Super 8 if it's digital?
Yeah.
Can you maybe explain why, other than the fact that it's real versus not real? Like, what's the appeal to actually using a real Super 8 versus editing it to make it look like it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You don't have to know the answer to that. You can just
I
give me
know
your
it's okay.
opinion.
I feel like my first instinct is like, well, it's not real. Like it's
Right,
not. Which
right.
obviously you said it other than that, but um,
But do you feel like maybe it doesn't look as real?
it definitely doesn't look as real because I
Okay.
have seen like I know people that shoot video who do overlays, and they don't say that it's film. You know, they just
Hmm.
it's just like a style that they do, and maybe I can tell because I shoot film, but I can tell it's not real.
Yeah.
It looks like a little bit too, like, I think film has this ability to soften an image without
Yes.
making it blurry, where the overlays, it's still a little bit too high def to get the
Hmm.
softness, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm. No, that totally makes sense. And I would say that's probably the case for like even when people are editing stills to look like
Totally.
film, you know?
Yeah.
Like I have my cinematic summer presets coming out and like
Oh,
I love them. Like they're
yeah.
so fun and I think they look really close to film, but there
Yeah.
isn't going to be anything that's actually like film, you
Totally.
know?
Yeah.
But okay, I'm like, hold on. Do I have any more questions before I let you go? Because I like am
I
so
know.
invested in this conversation.
I'm like trying to think if there's something we haven't talked about.
That is so funny. Oh, where do you think is the best place to buy a Super 8 and to buy film?
Oh, good question. Yeah. So I always, for the, okay, for the most part, I always get mine on eBay.
Okay.
And I like eBay because the sellers on there will say if it's been tested with film, which is
Nice.
obviously the most important thing. I did get an underwater Super 8 a couple months ago. I
Wait,
know.
I want
I
one
know.
so bad. I
Oh my
want just,
gosh.
I want like underwater casing for my camera or something
Yes.
so bad. So we'll have to chat more about
Yes, we will.
that.
I actually, the lab just emailed me yesterday that they received my film, but it's like all of this surfing footage from Hawaii. So I'm so
Oh,
excited
I'm
to see
so
it.
jealous because that's why I want it. Like, I want
Yeah.
underwater casing so I can go out with my friends, like, and do that.
It's just so fun. But
Yeah.
I still was like out in the water trying to like hold it above the waves because I was so
Yeah.
nervous.
Yeah.
But I got that from Monster Flips. So that's
Okay.
another good website.
I
Is
have
Monster
never
Flips.
heard of that.
Yeah,
Monster flips. Okay.
monsterflipsusa.com.
Done. I'm Googling it right after this.
Google it. And
And then your
then
film.
film I get from Pro 8. So that's the
Okay.
lab that I use. And I buy their like prepaid film packages and then I just send them back to them.
Nice. Okay, cool. Is there anything else that like Super 8 for Dummies, like if you were making that book, you would throw in there? Like anything that as you've heard me asking all
Yeah.
these questions, you're like, oh, you should probably know this too.
Okay, well, this is actually funny, but I did write a Super 8 guide, which is, it kind of feels
Yes.
like a Super 8, not for dummies, but for beginners.
For dummies,
Um,
totally. For me.
But I'm trying to think if there's anything. I don't know that there's anything specific that I
Yeah.
would say that we haven't gone over, but I think with anything in life, like just diving in headfirst
Yeah.
and like wholeheartedly is so helpful. Because I think if you're like teetering on the edge of like, you know, buying a Super 8 and like trying to figure it out and like not sure if you want to make the investment, I say just like go for it because
Yeah.
it's fun to do things and then realize like, oh my gosh, I love this, or
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about this and I never would have known if I didn't try.
I love it. Oh, I love that. That's such a like sweet place to end, I think. Like
Oh,
if you want to do it, then just try it because you
yeah,
might end up loving it, you know?
so true.
So I love that. Okay. Last question before we wrap up. Is
Okay.
there a way when you're planning that you maybe like approach the creative process or the planning process for a shoot differently? Like, do you have a specific shot list that you need to get or something
Yeah,
like that, whether you're working with a brand or for couples that might be different than the average digital photographer like me?
yeah, that's a good question. I think I would say shooting weddings is a little bit different from shooting for brands
Mm-hmm.
and couples because for weddings, I'm kind of like looking for those special moments that are already happening and capturing those. But so I think I have a little bit less of like inspo going into it or
Mm-hmm.
like shot list in mind. I have a shot list in mind, but for the most part, you're like capturing the event. I think with brands and couples, I would say I do like to have an idea of what I want to shoot because I think I mentioned this, but each role depending on your frames per second. If you're shooting at 18 frames per second, you get 3 minutes and 20 seconds of footage. And then 24 frames per second, you get 2.5 minutes.
So wild.
Per roll. So it's not a lot of footage. And so I like to go into shoots knowing kind of what I want or what poses I want to do. And sometimes I'll like have them practice before I actually film it.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to do like multiple takes of each shot just because you'd be wasting film. So I would say compared to digital, you can't overshoot. Obviously, like with digital, you can just shoot as much as you want. But I do like to be a little bit more like intentional about the shots that I'm getting.
That's so good. I feel like I had another question about the film. It might come back to me, but if it doesn't, why don't you share where everyone can find you, where everyone can follow you, and where they can get that Super 8 guide? Because I know a lot of people are going to be really interested in it.
Yeah, definitely. So my Instagram is Sumshine. It's SUMM_shine. And then my TikTok, if you want to look at that, is Super 8 Film with 2 M's. And my film guide is linked in my bio on Instagram.
Perfect. Well, Summer, thank you so much for coming on. Genuinely, it was a joy to get to know you, and we're going to need to meet in person. I'm already like, I need you to know, like,
down the street now.
I know. I'm so confused. Why didn't we just do this in person? I don't know. I should have just invited you over. But like, my mind is literally like reeling with ways that I can work with you after this, just so you know. So we're going to chat. We're going to talk.
But thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. Okay, guys. Well, if you want to go follow Summer, make sure that you guys do that. If you, for whatever reason, aren't following me yet, definitely come and hang out with me on my Instagram or my TikTok at Alex Blake Photography. Please rate and review the podcast. It really does like help with just like sharing it, and it helps with downloads for me, which is really important for my business and to share our community with other photographers. So I love you guys, and I will see you guys next Thursday. Bye.